What would you do if the boy who has harassed you for months simply for being black dares to call you inferior in front of everyone? And what if, after all, you discovered that his hatred knows no bounds? The truth about what happened that day will change everyone's life, but will it be enough to make him pay for what he did? The sun was beginning to set over the neighborhood, painting the horizon orange while the children ran in the park. Among them was Kiana, a 12-year-old girl whose beautiful dark skin glowed under the last rays of the day. She wasn't alone, though her face, serious but firm, showed a mix of confidence and a certain reserve, as if she were always ready to face something bigger than herself. In the distance, a group of boys was playing football, but one of them, Andres, a 14-year-old boy known for his arrogant attitude, was watching her from the edge of the field. He had decided, long ago, that Kiana was one of those people who deserved to be ignored or worse, belittled. One day, as she walked past his group of friends, Andres approached quickly, shoving her forcefully. Kiana, surprised, stumbled and almost fell to the ground. The schoolboys laughed, but Kiana, keeping her calm, regained her balance. She didn't want to give him the satisfaction of reacting. She knew that if she did, everything would become harder. But Andres wasn't willing to leave her alone. Over the following days, his harassment grew more intense. He made comments about her hair, her skin, mocking everything that set her apart. Each day, Kiana felt smaller, weaker, but her mother, who had always told her that her skin was a blessing, kept repeating that she shouldn't let others' words define her. The day arrived, an ordinary Monday. Kiana was walking to school, her heavy backpack on her shoulders, when she saw Andres again, this time with two friends. They surrounded her and started making cruel comments. Andres, with his usual tone of contempt, shoved her again, and with a cruel smile on his face, he said, "Why don't you go back to your country, black girl? You're not welcome here." Rage started to rise in Kiana's body. She could feel her heart beating fast, the tears almost coming out, but she didn't want to give in. However, this time, something inside her changed. With a determined look, she stood in front of Andres and said, "You're not going to treat me like this. Not ever again." Andres laughed loudly, sure that she wouldn't do anything. But what he didn't know, what he never imagined, was that Kiana wasn't alone. Her father, a strong and honorable man, had recently been elected as the new mayor of the city, a position that many saw as a necessary change, an opportunity for the voices of the marginalized to be heard. What Andres didn't know was that Kiana's mother had kept a secret. Kiana was the daughter of the new mayor. Her father had always taught her to be respectful, to never use her position for personal gain, but in moments like this, everything could change. Kiana, with the same calm as always, took out her mobile phone and sent a message. At that moment, Andres's phone vibrated with a notification. "What are you doing?" "I saw you harassing my daughter. I'm on my way." Andres looked at the screen, confused. The notification came from an unknown number, but the message, clear and direct, froze his blood. On the way to school, Kiana's father, the new mayor, had received the news through a direct message from his wife. Rage filled him as he learned what his daughter was suffering. He wouldn't allow anyone to treat his daughter that way. He wouldn't allow it in his city, not under his watch. When Andres realized what was happening, his face turned pale. The mockery on his face disappeared instantly, and fear overtook him. The other boys looked at him, also scared, not knowing what to do. Andres's rage turned into fear. He knew what it meant to mess with someone powerful, but what he didn't understand was that this wasn't about power, it was about humanity. Kiana, however, wasn't willing to wait any longer. With her unwavering gaze, she said to Andres, "Next time you touch me, you'll have to face something much bigger than you." But Kiana knew the end hadn't come yet. There was something bigger than justice being formed, and she was going to see it fulfilled. And Andres still didn't know how big the lesson he was about to learn would be. The echo of her threat hung in the air as Kiana walked away, moving with more strength, knowing the storm had just begun. That afternoon, when Kiana got home, her mother greeted her with a warm smile, though worried. The girl said nothing, just let herself be hugged by her mother while thinking about what had happened. She knew her father, the mayor, would soon take action, but what worried her most was how Andres hadn't shown any remorse. And that was the beginning of his suffering. That night, the mayor, worried but also determined, sat in his office, reviewing reports and making decisions for the city. The phone vibrated on his desk, interrupting his focus. It was a message from his daughter. "Dad, what are you going to do about that boy? He makes me feel bad every day. Don't you think it's enough already?" The anguish in his daughter's words hit him like an avalanche. It was his responsibility, not only as a father, but as the leader of the city, to eradicate racism and violence in any form. The next day at school, Andres, unaware of what was about to happen, was doing what he loved most, mocking others. When he saw Kiana in the halls, his cruel laughter echoed through the air. However, this time, as he approached her with a new joke about her skin, the atmosphere in the school shifted. A couple of teachers, alerted by rumors that had reached the administration's ears, were watching him with fixed eyes. Suddenly, the school principal, a man known for his impartiality, appeared out of nowhere. He hadn't arrived by chance. He had been summoned by a message he received that morning. The mayor had asked for immediate action to be taken. Andres, seeing the principal approach, felt a knot in his stomach. "Are you the one who's been harassing Kiana?" asked the principal in a firm, unwavering voice. Andres, confused, tried to justify his actions, but the principal didn't give him room to speak. The message was clear, and the authority was on the principal's side. At that very moment, Andres' phone rang. It was a message from an unknown number. He opened it quickly, and the words made him tremble. "You're in big trouble. Did you know Kiana is the daughter of the new mayor of the city? This isn't the time for your jokes." Andres felt as though the world was crumbling around him. His friends looked at him with fear while he stood there speechless. In that precise moment, the principal motioned for him to accompany him to his office. This was no longer just a reprimand. The harassment had stopped being a personal issue for Kiana. It had crossed the line of what was acceptable, and now the authorities were involved. Kiana's father, the mayor, had made the decision to act quickly. The next day, Andres was called to a meeting with the city's education team, along with his parents. In the conference room, the mayor presented himself before them, with a fixed gaze and a presence that filled the space. "I know what you did, Andres. I know what you did to my daughter. What you don't know is that what happens here in my city is my responsibility," the mayor said, his voice echoing throughout the room. Andres, now pale, felt the weight of his actions like never before. His parents, also embarrassed, looked at the mayor, unable to defend the indefensible. The mayor continued, "Racism will not be tolerated, and neither will harassment. You will not only lose the respect of your peers, but this act will have consequences. From today, you will be suspended from school for a month, without access to extracurricular activities. And more importantly, your parents will be responsible for making sure you receive the necessary education on respect and empathy. There will be no second chances for this behavior." Andres tried to speak, but the mayor raised his hand, asking for silence. "Your karma, son, is not an abstract concept. It is catching up to you now, and everything you've done in secret will come to light. Not because you're the son of the mayor, but because you're responsible for your own fate. So take this time to reflect." The news spread quickly throughout the school. Andres was no longer the boy everyone feared. He was now the one who had been punished for his intolerant behavior, the one who had been rejected by the community and the authority that represented the city. The shame was unbearable, and his peers, who once laughed at his jokes, no longer looked at him the same way. Kiana, for her part, felt relieved, but also sad for what Andres had to face. However, within her, a sense of justice grew. It wasn't revenge, nor a low blow. It was the natural consequence of actions. Sometimes, the hardest lesson isn't the one that's given, but the one you receive when you feel invincible. From that moment on, Andres became the example of what should not be done. And Kiana, though she never forgot the harm that had been caused to her, knew that the power of community, her family, and a system that protected the innocent had delivered justice. The storm that had unleashed wasn't just for Andres, but for everyone who thought they could go on without consequences. As the weeks went by, the impact of Andres' punishment was felt throughout the school. Teachers began taking stricter measures to prevent bullying, organizing talks about respect, empathy, and diversity. Kiana, though still carrying the sadness of what she had lived through, realized that her struggle had meant something bigger than her own suffering. She had opened a path for other children at her school to also be heard, so that no one else would have to go through the same thing. But Andres' story didn't end with his suspension. After his punishment, he had to face the consequences of his actions outside of school as well. The local press, which often covered the decisions of the new mayor, became interested in the case, and soon the cameras focused on the young harasser. Andres, who had always enjoyed the attention, now only wished to disappear. His parents, embarrassed and worried about his future, sought legal counsel, but their son's public image was already damaged. Reports of his racist behavior, the messages sent to the school community, and the sanctions imposed by the mayor began to be topics of conversation in the municipal offices. The damage to his reputation was irreversible. Instead of becoming a respected young man, Andres had become the example of what happened when someone crossed the line of respect. Meanwhile, Kiana, though moving forward with her life, found new ways to channel the injustice she had suffered. She started getting involved in support groups against bullying, working with other children to teach them about respect and dignity, regardless of their skin color. She realized that her pain wasn't just hers, but that many others suffered the same, and together they could do something about it. The mayor, proud of his daughter, supported her every step of the way in her new mission. He knew that while he had taken exemplary action against Andres, what really mattered was the cultural change he was achieving in the city. Together, father and daughter worked on new policies to eradicate racism and bullying in schools. The mayor's administration focused on creating an educational environment where all students, regardless of race, gender, or origin, could feel safe and valued. And so, Andres' karma came not only in the form of punishment, but also as a public lesson that touched the hearts of many. In the blink of an eye, the young man who once thought the world was at his feet was now the example of what not to be. Meanwhile, Kiana remained firm, proud of who she was, aware that the battle against intolerance would never be easy, but that, with time, change was possible. Andres never forgot the lesson life gave him, a lesson that, despite being harsh, transformed the way he viewed the world and related to others. And Kiana, in her own way, began to heal because she knew there was no justice without struggle and no victory without courage. As the months passed, Kiana's life returned to normal, but her personal growth skyrocketed. Every time she saw her classmates, she smiled with a serenity she hadn't had before. She knew that, although her pain didn't completely disappear, she had come out of everything stronger. Along the way, she found new friendships, peers who respected her for who she was, for her strength, for her intelligence. The school, inspired by Kiana's changed attitude, began to implement more programs on diversity and inclusion. The municipal authorities, led by the mayor, also started working hand in hand with local organizations to offer educational workshops in all the city's schools, focusing on respect for differences and building a more inclusive community. As for Andres, the situation became increasingly difficult. Social pressure, shame, and regret consumed him slowly. Although his family tried to support him, the reality of his actions didn't disappear overnight. He realized he had made a huge mistake, that his disdain for Kiana had not only caused her great harm, but had also marked him forever. It wasn't just the school punishment that hurt. It was the social rejection, the way his classmates no longer looked at him, the lack of trust he saw in everyone's eyes around him. Eventually, Andres began to seek help. It wasn't easy, but he understood that the first step toward redemption was acknowledging his mistake. He approached Kiana, not with the intention of asking for forgiveness, expecting everything to return to normal, but to apologize sincerely, understanding that his words and actions had caused deep harm. One day, in the school hallway, as Kiana was heading to class, Andres caught up with her. There were no cameras, no grand speeches, just a vulnerable young man humbly approaching the young woman he had once mistreated. "I owe you an apology, Kiana," he said, his head lowered. "I know there are no excuses for what I did, but I want you to know that I'm trying to change. I regret being so cruel to you. I apologize from the bottom of my heart." Kiana looked at him for a long moment without hurry. She knew that forgiveness wasn't something given easily, nor something that erased the harm done, but she also understood that people could change if they truly wanted to. With a soft but firm voice, she replied, "What you did isn't forgotten, Andres, but I believe people can change if they really want to. I hope you work on being better, not just for you, but for everyone around you. People like you have a lot to learn, and sometimes learning hurts." Andres, grateful for Kiana's words, walked away with the certainty that his path to change wouldn't be easy, but he now had a chance to do it right. He knew not everything would be forgiven, but he understood that was the price of his actions. In his heart, he held on to the hope that one day he could redeem himself, though the truth was that redemption wouldn't depend solely on him, but on all those who still looked at him with distrust. Over time, Andres ceased to be the arrogant, prejudiced young man he had once been. Although his path was long and full of challenges, he dedicated himself to building a new way of relating to others, focusing on empathy, respect, and understanding. Kiana, for her part, continued moving forward with her life, growing stronger and more confident each day. She knew the world wouldn't change immediately, but she also understood that her own courage had made a difference. She hadn't just faced her harasser, she had opened the door to transformation, both for him and for herself. Over time, Kiana became an active advocate for children's rights, working tirelessly to ensure that no one else suffered the same pain she had experienced. The city changed slowly, but it changed in the right direction. Racism and bullying, though not completely gone, began to be taken seriously, and more people joined the cause to create a more inclusive society. And so, the story of Kiana and Andres became a reminder that, although the harm can be deep and the road to redemption long, justice, forgiveness, and change are always possible. The lesson both learned was simple: respect, empathy, and the fight against intolerance are the true weapons to change the world. At the end of that meeting, Dolores walked out of the bank building with a sense of satisfaction, but also with reflection. She knew there was still much to be done, that the fight for social justice wasn't won with a single step, but with thousands of small acts of resistance and courage. At home, by the end of the day, she sat by her window, looking at the lit-up city. She had made an important turn in her life, a turn that went beyond money and fame. She had taken what had been done to her, what had been said to her, and turned it into something much greater. Change, after all, didn't just depend on what she could accomplish, but on what others could learn from her example. And as she thought about this, Dolores realized that, ultimately, true power didn't lie in money or large institutions, but in the ability to change hearts, to influence minds, and to leave a mark that would last far beyond her time. With that inner peace, Dolores closed her eyes and allowed herself a moment to breathe. The battle had been tough, but at last she felt the world was beginning to see people like her not only with respect, but with a new understanding. And, in some way, she knew that this was just the beginning of a revolution that, though quiet, was making noise in every corner of the world.